Hey guys, Bjthebrave here, back with some exciting Warpforge content today. We have got the brand new, I think we call it reinforcement drop for the Genestealer cults, and I'm going to be revealing 6 cards today alongside our good friend LongTim. LongTim, how are you, my friend?
What's up? I'm so excited to have more genes stolen. It's going to be great.
And also, just to add a little bit of spice to this reveal, Tim has not seen the cards, so I've had a little look at them. You're going to be getting Tim's initial first-time reaction as well. If you've not checked out LongTim's channel, go over to his YouTube. I'm going to put the link down below in the description. Go over, give the man a sub. He is fast approaching 1k subscribers, so go and do that. We appreciate all the support. So Tim, how are you feeling about this reinforcement drop before we show the cards? Because we're in pretty balanced meta at the minute. This is quite an interesting season. Is this a faction you like? Are you looking forward to this?
I am looking forward to it. This is a faction I like. Honestly, I think off the back of much coaching from yourself, BJ, I've really come to like the faction overall. Feel like there's all these different things you can do, and I know sabotage is very controversial, right? You know, a lot of folks are generally talking about how that's going to be, but regardless of that sort of stuff, I think Genestealers are in a decent place. I think Primus has really kind of broken out. You were showcasing her recently in your video, and so things are in a good spot in the meta overall. And so I am curious to see if the Genestealers get extra power. And I think my hope was maybe some ambush support, maybe something that would help out Mr. Malik. But you know, other than that, I'm always excited.
Yeah, that's the weakest of the sort of archetypes, isn't it? Yeah, this faction's actually really, I would say this faction's really, I've kind of done a full circle with it, because when it first got announced I thought, oh, this is not for me. I'm not really that big into the background, the lore and the tabletop side of them, so I wasn't really excited about them as a new release. But I think where this faction's really got me is the card game design. I actually think they're one of my favourite factions. I actually think it's one of the best designed new factions we've had. Yes, the ambush isn't quite there, but I think some of the other things are brilliant. I think the intricacies between the cards, I think it's a bit of a deck builder's dream. I honestly still don't even. I still feel like there's lots of decks that I could build with this faction that could be pretty powerful. So I'm actually really looking forward to these reinforcements. Getting more cards for this faction really excites me. So yeah, shall we jump on in?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, first card, guys. We have the Jackal Scout. The 4th generation hybrids roar through the tunnels and dusty plains to gather intelligence on trade routes, military outposts, resources, deposits, and the like. So I think the first thing to point out here is the vehicle. I do think that this expansion is quite vehicle heavy, so just bear that in mind as we look at the cards. We got a 1-drop, Tim. What do we think to these stats and this rally effect? Choose a card in your opponent's hand and increase its cost by 1.
Very, very interesting. I think people are going to be a little wary of a card like this. I mean, it's cool to think about the, what is it, the Fabern Vanquisher out of the Imperial Guard that does the opposite, right? So it reduces 1 in your hand. So Jackal Scout really going after your hand, just like Sabotage tends to. And I think it's interesting in the sense that you're never really quite sure how effects like this impact your opponent, but I still have to imagine knocking something so it comes down a turn later and maybe having Sabotage on top of it is really going to be disruptive to your opponent. So watch out for this, I think.
I absolutely love it. Not to mention the fact that you could obviously put a Sabotage card in your opponent's hand, then you could play this, make the Sabotage card cost 1 more. You know, there's stuff like that as well. So I really like it. And again, one of the reasons why I love the Genestealer design is it's the disruption deck, isn't it? It's the disruption faction. Everything's about disrupting your opponent's plans, which for me is like a form of control, and it's quite unique in the game. So I just really love it. And more disruption cards is pretty cool. And I mean, you can imagine playing this on things like 10 drops as well, right? Just making them almost like just impossible to play, or putting the Will of Gork back another turn, so you get an extra turn of a like for example, remember the old combo deck? We used to go off on 7, and then they nerfed it, didn't they? Now we go off on, oh, is it the other way around? It used to be 6, now 7. Is that right?
For Will of Gork?
No, you know the GSC, the original combo deck.
Oh, used to be 6, now 7.
That's right.
Yep.
So the problem with that is that against Orkz, if you go off on 7, then if they went first, then it's their EA, and then they will have got the board. But if Jackal Scout is one of the cards in the combo, like that, this in that combo deck is brilliant, because you just put in, you're just delaying whatever their best response is by a turn. So yeah, I really like this card. And a body as well, right? The little sort of Gretchen effect. It's they're going to have to hit this to clear it rather than hitting your thing. So it's almost like save 2 life off your Warlord. Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah,
Really
pairs well with Uprising because it's cheap. Like you said, you can even add insult to injury with increasing a sabotage. And I like I do love you were talking about, I think, recon mission this morning when we were chatting about, you get to see some cards and do that with Asmodai. It is powerful to see 3 cards out of your opponent's hand when you're also trying to disrupt it. So
yeah,
this is going to be, I think, definitely seen all over the Genestealing network.
That's right, because this is only the second card in the game, isn't it, where you can actually see your opponent's hand? Is that right?
I think so.
Recon
yeah, because
mission
chooses 3, and so you'll get to see 3, just like Recon mission.
Yeah,
you get to pick. Yeah, I mean, and that's, especially for Genestealers, that information is pretty sick.
yeah. For those who don't know, just to clarify, we're talking about the reconnaissance mission. It's a 1E stratagem in the Dark Angels. We're not talking about the Astra Militarum card. So yeah, very interesting. Okay, let's have a look at the next card. So next up we have the Jackal Outrider. This is a green, this is a rare card. We can have 2 of them. 3 energy, 4 health, which is pretty good. 4 range, so it's got that trade up ability. Only 2 melee, but it says ambush, gain flank, and if you trigger that ambush, not only do you gain flank, but you get blast 2 and concussive this turn. So this is one of those, like, if you trigger the ambush, it's so OP, it's bananas, but obviously you've got to trigger the ambush. So without seeing the rest of the cards, what do you think to this so far?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, definitely quite the bit of value packed into, but everything tacked onto the ambush, and definitely the biggest drawback, unless you get a friendly Genestealer to put a poison supply in your own hand, to enable stuff like this, something that BJ talked a lot about when he was coaching me with Genestealer mirror matches. I like how it looks. Its stats overall as a card is solid for a 3-drop, and the ambush is really impactful. I think the question again with any of these ambush cards is how likely or easy is it to enable the ambush?
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's keep going. Maybe we'll see something that helps with that. Who knows? I will just say on this card, I actually think that one of the keys to ambush is it's got to be okay for your opponent to disrupt it and you still feel like the card's okay, if that makes sense. And I think this is kind of there for me. So like, if you think about the stats, if you think about a 3-drop, they're going to trade in blind. So even if they were trading and they could see this, they'd attack the 2-drop, and they might need to attack it twice with the 4 health, so I think that's pretty good. But obviously the 50-50 that they choose the range attack on the first one and hitting 4, I actually think it's pretty, I think it's actually okay. I think it's passable, if you like, whereas many of the ambush cards, it's really casino-y. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I think that's a good card. Let's have a look. The Atlan Leader, a legendary card. Flank. And it comes it costs 4, it's got 5 health with the 5 melee and the 3 range. It comes with flank, so obviously you can make sure that you do attack with the 5 melee. And it says friendly vehicles cost 1 less. Strike. So providing we can flank and survive with the 5 health, there's a good chance that we do that, providing we're trading down. It says trigger the ambush abilities of all friendly troops. There you go. There's your enabler.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah.
So if you play this on turn 7, you could play the previous card. Right, costs 3. You play this guy for 4, and he would immediately trigger. This Jackal Outrider, meaning that the Outrider would then gain flank, and it can so they can essentially both attack at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, this is an ambush enabler that I think we were looking for. You know, something that just allows for that to happen outside of, you know, your opponent's control, which, you know, is generally not going to be good for you when you're trying to set things up. And the friendly vehicles cost 1 less. I mean, generally these types of effects are very impactful. You know, pairing multiple vehicles together, right? Like you said, you can play on 6 energy. You play this strike, makes it cost 1 less, right? So you can play the other one for 2 energy.
Oh, actually, it just says flank. Friendly vehicles cost 1 less. So
yeah,
you can actually do this on E6, can't you? It's not E7. Because that's only going to cost 2.
Yeah. I mean, think about. I mean, Minka Lesk is probably one of my favorite, you know, legendaries out of the Imperial Guard because it enables some really impactful stuff. Even though that faction's struggling a little bit these days, but I imagine this will still be impactful too. All of the stuff that's tacked onto this card.
Also notice every troop we've shown so far has been a vehicle.
Yeah,
so this is all
about the biker gang.
It's all about the biker gang. Absolutely, I guess that's what the Atlans are. Yeah, my lore knowledge isn't great for these guys, so I'll perhaps have to go and read up on that. Good legendary. I mean, it's a flanker, right? Yeah. For nothing else, for a 4-mana flanker with 5 melee is very good. So it'll be played for sure. Alright, next card. We have the Atlan Wolf Quad, also a vehicle. And a basic common card, 6 energy. Now, I don't like the stats on this, Tim. Don't know what you think. With only the 6 health, 6 range, and 3 melee. It's not a flyer, so of course that melee is going to get attacked because it doesn't have rally. It doesn't have flank. However, I really do like its rally. Its rally effect is deal 2 damage to an enemy and then 1 damage to adjacent units. So what I love about this is that, you know, we have lots of cards in the game, don't we, that just deal 3 damage. It's rally, deal 3 damage. What we're doing here is only dealing 2 but giving it kind of a blast effect, so it's kind of like throwing the effect. There's a lot of cards have this, that when they attack they do this, don't they? And almost it's almost like Titus has a similar thing, doesn't he? And, you know, Aveline and things like that. So it's like that ability but on something you throw rather than having to attack with it. So I love that rally effect. I just don't like the stats, and I'm not. It's hard to tell. I usually do value these types of rally effects. I think you get away with poor stats because you're immediately impacting the board. So, you know, you can think, can't you, that the 1 damage on the adjacent units, you can combine that with attacking with your Warlord, so that's like 3 damage you can do to 1 unit, and it's not even the main one that you hit. So I can see this being very flexible in how you control the board. I just don't know about the stats. Anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think those are all really valid points. So I guess, you know, even just thinking about the legendary, right, that comes in on 4 if it survives, which is not terribly likely after, like, trading with something. I guess if you play it out onto an empty board, and then you could play this next turn because it'll be knockdown 1. That's reasonable, but that's obviously the kind of the dream scenario. I mean, you've got Ridge Runner on 6 energy, especially if you're trying to play like a tempo vehicle something, and that card's just excellent. So I don't know, but I mean, as a common, I think this could be decent.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not something where I look at it and I'm like, oh, this will be an auto include. I think this will be kind of niche.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to make it into meta decks. I do think it's probably it's a pretty good starter card. You know, one thing I'm aware of ever since I did that beginner to legendary run is, like, I look at these kind of common cards differently because this is what you start with, and there are a lot of bad common cards, particularly in the original factions. I think this is a good common card. Like, you know, if you start new to the game, this would be a decent 6-drop. But I do think it's a card you'd replace as your you know, as your collection grew, as you unlock things, and it probably decent in draft as well, actually. But I don't see this
Yeah.
really making any sort of top tier meta decks. But I might be wrong. It is a unique ability, so we'll have to see. Okay, next up we have a stratagem, guys. We have our first epic. It only costs 1 energy, and it's called Rogue Informant. Choose a card from your deck, which means it'll show you 3 cards from your deck, and you get to pick one and draw it. If it's a troop, give it stealth. This card's broken. if you wanted ambush to work, well, here you go, guys. This card is going to enable ambush. What do you think?
Oh my! And it's 1 energy.
Yep.
Jeez. Yeah. I mean, this is. It's really, really. I would also say broken. This does exactly what you want it to do. I guess you could play it in some other build where it's not as concerned with troops to try and, like, you know, set up something. But yeah, this just feels like a perfect. I want to make sure this ambush card gets to connect, so I'm going to give it stealth. Yeah, I mean, this just has to be so good, especially for the ambush decks.
I mean, just think about how goddamn broken this is on the Patriarch, right? You know, you've been put in sabotage in opponent's hand. They've got like 8, 9 cards in the hand. They're struggling to get rid of them, and you just drop, and you just play this, draw the Patriarch out of your deck, and put it into stealth, so that it pretty much automatically triggers. I mean, it's real good. The only thing about ambush is that, like, say I've got an 8 health ambush card, and you play like an AOE effect. It will reveal the card and not trigger ambush. So even though I haven't killed your card, I have stopped its ambush going off. So that is the only thing that kind of makes the stealth thing not quite as good. But it's still, I mean, god damn, this is so good. This is so good.
Yeah. I mean, I think most times this card's going to be exactly what you need it to. It's super cheap. You know, the fact that this is 1 energy, it really doesn't stop you from continuing to play like a tempo, aggro mid-range game, and then just setting up. I mean, Genestealers already have some of the most impactful stealth units in the game, and so adding this onto making other ambush cards more viable, or even just other impactful cards in your deck now gaining stealth as well, or having the option to. This seems incredibly powerful.
Sanctus, it's another trigger. It's another way of bringing Sanctus into play. All those abhorrent cards that never get played, that have like the big 8 melee damage and no range, that those now suddenly way better, right? Like, you draw those and play them with stealth. It's a different ball game. Even things like the Icon Bearer, you know, that there's the engine to trigger all the Day of Ascension approaches, you know, so like you just suddenly give that guy stealth. I mean, there's so many targets for this, isn't there?
Yeah, you said it. I mean, this is just like the kid in the candy store getting whatever you want stealth. Insane.
And what I like, I mean, I really do think this card is bonkers, but it's going to unlock cards specifically that aren't played right now, because as you already said, a lot of the good cards come with stealth that are currently played in every GSC deck. This is going to unlock cards now that aren't played. Really. This is S tier. Definitely the card of the expansion so far for me. Wow. wow.
Absolutely. I agree.
Not to mention as well, oh god, it's a 1E stratagem, so it's another trigger for Nexus, it's another trigger for the Sanctus Saboteur. Oh my god.
Watch out, everybody.
Watch out, everybody. This is... Yeah, this is something. Oh my god. Oh, the 6E card that makes everything -1. The Metamorph leader. Give him stealth and just like... Oh my.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So many targets for it. Okay, let's see, what else have we got? Now then, this is a really interesting card. Another stratagem, it costs 4 energy. It's called Roaming Outriders. It says, deal 1 damage to a random enemy and stun it. Okay, so it's a bit like the Squig spell from Orkz. But then repeat this effect for each vehicle in your hand and lower their cost by 1. So if you're playing a vehicle deck, I mean, Jesus, let's imagine you've got 3 vehicles in your hand. That means you stun 4 units, because remember, you never stun a unit that's already stunned. We know this from Genestealer. So you could stun the entire board, dealing 1 damage to them, and those 3 or 4 vehicles in your hand are now one less. I think this looks promising. I mean, obviously, in a would you play it in a very fast tempo? Maybe you would. I think this is a really interesting card. Don't know how to evaluate how good it is.
Extremely interesting. Kind of combining a little bit of, you know, crowd control, board control, and then also getting, you know, even though you're not impacting the board so much because it's 1 damage and a stun, you're making your hand more efficient. And we've already seen a couple flankers. We've seen some other vehicle reduction off the legendary. Yeah, I mean, 4 energy, 4 or 5 energy for effects like this definitely swing the tempo to some degree back in your opponent's favor, but you should be recovering if you've got those vehicles already in your
Getting
hand.
cheaper,
so
yeah. So if you think about the new Chaos, the invulnerable card that just got buffed, so it costs 4 energy, it makes you invulnerable for a turn, it does vulnerable to your opponent's board. If you compare this card to that as an example, obviously that's a legendary card. This is not. We can have 2 of these, but it kind of performs the same thing, right? In that what you want to do is sort of make your lords safe for a turn. Now it's not quite that, because your lord's not safe. They can still do direct damage to your lord, but it makes you safe from being hit, right, by the enemy warlord or being hit by enemy troops. So it's like a slightly less safe, but that's what it's doing. It's trying to hold up the game for another turn, right? So it's sort of doing that, and is a kind of little bit of a damage element instead of the vulnerable element. So I'm wondering, like, if you're in a kind of back and forth, and who's going to win first, who's going to end the game first. I think this could be that kind of surprise thing in a tempo war, you know, like that Humanity Shield. That, yeah, I think it's interesting. I'd have to test it to see, but pretty cool card, right?
Yeah, very cool design. I'm into this. It's hard to envision how it all is going to play out, but it seems very synergistic with vehicle, mid-range, late game, something.
Exactly. So that is all we've got for you folks. So very quickly, we had the 1-drop Jackal Scout. We had the Jackal Outrider, which again, you looked at this. Now we know that there are ways to kind of bring this out in stealth, or we can use the legendary. So there's ways to cheat this out. Not a bad card. Then we had the Atlan Leader. This was the legendary card for our side of the expansion. Then we had the Atlan Wolf Quad. The Rogue Informant. Seems to me like this is the winner. Don't know. Yeah, I definitely think that's my favourite card, but I'm also pretty keen on that too. Overall, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, really interesting stuff. Like we see a little bit of ambush support. We see definitely a noticeable amount of vehicle support, and then the Rogue Informant is just a very clearly powerful, efficient card. And I like the Jackal Rider too for throwing in a little bit of cheap, you know, disruption, sort of like maybe pairing with Uprising if you're trying to do that as a cheap card as well. And the Jackal Outrider, yeah, I really like just in general. So yeah, I mean, I feels like the power is there, especially for a card like Rogue Informant so far, and there's some clear synergy with vehicles. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think this card is going to be used a lot. Alright guys, that is everything we've got for you today. Like I said, go and check out Tim's channel and give him a sub on his YouTube. Hit that like button below if you like this, and you should be getting another release, a reveal video from the Ecclesiarch around about 2 PM, between 2 and 3 PM UTC today. So until next time guys, take it easy.